no hill we can't climb. There's no mountain too high for us now. There's no reason to hide. Just let
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Abuse Recovery Success. I'm so excited for today's guest. I have an in-person guest who's near and dear to my heart. But before I reveal just exactly who she is, I'd like to start by thanking you guys for being listeners and really joining me on this fun adventure of our fourth season. We've had some really amazing guests. We're going to have more amazing guests, and we've been in studio with Tantio Productions doing a great job. We're having so much fun. You guys actually probably kind of wish you were here with us because we're having a little bit too much fun. But, you know, the purpose of this podcast at the end of the day is really about bringing light to abuse and recovery and giving inspiration to all of our listeners. So today I have a guest that is a friend of mine, a business owner in Arizona and in my industry, and I've grown actually pretty close to recently and has inspired me in more than one ways. So she was top of mind when I got the opportunity to invite a guest to the studio. So without further ado, Jen, welcome to Abuse Recovery Success.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited for you to be here. And really, I think one of the reasons I'm so excited for you to be here is because your story has affected me, what I know about it, and I know that I don't know everything about it. And what this is an opportunity for you to help others that have gone through similar situations. So today, what I'd like to do is have you share with our audience, with our listeners, your strength, your journey, your hope, really how you came to be who you are today. And you can start back as far as you'd like.
Okay. First and foremost, I probably will cry.
Okay.
So
we've got the tissues ready.
My story's complicated but short at the same time. I'm from a really small town in the Midwest, and there's nothing really ever to do there. So I think what you would do is you would call your friend and say, hey, Devin, I'm staying at your house. She would tell her parents, I'm staying at Jen's house. And then you'd go into a cornfield and get all fucked up and black out and die of alcohol poisoning. But so drinking was like a big thing growing up. But that was my first realization. Like, I was very shy and didn't always felt like I fit in. But when I was drinking and partying, like, I could be anyone I wanted. I had enough balls to like say what I wanted to say. So I think my addiction first started with alcohol. It gave me a gateway into trying other things. So at one point, my boyfriend at the time, he played football. He hurt his knee and he was prescribed pain pills. And I remember coming home one day thinking like, oh my God, I have really bad cramps. Like, I wish this would go. I'm telling him about it. I'm crying. He's like, well, take this pain pill. It'll be, it'll help. Well, one thing led to another. And, I have that addict's mind where I can't just have one pain pill. Like, it is full blown now an addiction. That's what it felt like. It went from like 0 to 100. And it was very, in my hometown, it's everyone was doing it. It was like a thing. You would go to parties and people are like snorting pain pills or taking pain pills. So I think you become almost immune to it, desensitized, I would say. You think that is the normal to do this. It was funny because I left for a party in LA with my friend and I snorted a pain pill. And a guy looked at me and was like, what are you doing? Like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, doesn't everyone do this? But, in my hometown, everyone did. So to make a really long story short, it got really bad to the point where people were dying, like, left and right. And I was desensitized to that too. I had no emotion. It was like, Bob down the street passed away of an overdose. It was just something in my hometown that was the new norm, I would say. So anyway, it got really bad. It got really ugly. I signed the deal with the devil for sure when I got into taking them. It numbed everything. It helped me cope with my emotions. You know what? I had a friend ask me because she didn't understand. She's like, what does it feel like? When you take that pain pill, what does it feel like? And all I could say is like, it is a warm pot of honey. Like it felt like a warm pot of honey being poured onto my head and it's slowly covering my body. And you just felt so comfortable. And then you forgot about your anxiety and your stresses for the day. And one pill did this. So it's like, it was amazing. But I think where things turned for the worst is when I wouldn't have the pills and you start going through withdrawals, obviously. I remember not knowing because I think like growing up, you don't learn like, hey, stay away from the pain pill, stay away from those drugs. Like you think a doctor prescribes them, they must be okay. But I remember feeling really ill and my friend at one point was like, no, dude, you're just going through withdrawals. Like go take another pill, you'll be fine. So then at that point, it wasn't me trying to get high. It was me trying to say to feel okay, to feel normal. Mm-hmm. So then it, cut to me stealing, hurting people. I felt like I was just like an avatar walking around making like horrible decisions to try to like feed my habit. I think it came to a point, though, where I was in school at the time, like cosmetology school, and doing college, too. And I was paying for these classes, but I wasn't attending. I was going home and just getting fucked up. And then my mom called me into the room one time. It was the white room. So you knew if you went there, like, you're in trouble. No. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be a discussion. So her and my dad sat me down and was like, what's going on? You're not acting the same. We know that you're not going to school. And that's when I was like, I need help. Like, I can't do this on my own. Like, and, I got help. I relapsed. And I did that twice, got help, relapse. But I think the worst part was like when I started using, I feel like my mentality stopped there at like 16 or 15 or 16, however old I was. That was my mentality. Yeah. From when I started using, I was at that mindset. So I didn't know how to handle emotions properly. I didn't know how to deal with anything. And when my dad passed away, like that was a trigger. That was it. That was done. And it was another full-blown like spiral addiction again. And I would steal from my mom. I would steal from anyone just to like get that high. I mean, classic addict scenario. But, I think my lowest point was when I was realizing I was hurting other people, not just myself. But I didn't have any like crazy stories of like, I've seen a lot of things that I shouldn't have seen, but I was very fortunate to like have nothing bad truly happen to me. There's times that I definitely think I took too much and I overdosed, and my boyfriend at the time was pounding on my chest to like wake me up, but I never had anything like super bad happen to me where I couldn't go back, if that makes any sense. And it's just like a classic tale of like, you fall in love with a prescription pill and it's just downhill from there. Yeah. Trying to think, like, I was just fortunate enough nothing like that happened, but I ended up getting help, and obviously I'm here today.
Well, I think, we talk a lot about it in recovery. Everybody has a different bottom.
Totally.
And so there's high bottoms, low bottoms. And at the end of the day, everybody has a different interpretation of those bottoms. Mm-hmm. So, what might be a high bottom to someone could be a low bottom.
Totally.
And I think it's, in my humble opinion, at the end of the day, it's all about how we feel about ourselves, how we're moving through life, and if we're trapped. Mm-hmm. Because just hearing you kind of talk and lay out the story, and where you felt and began to feel really trapped. I mean, Lord knows I was super trapped by alcohol. And just, what's crazy is when you said avatar, because I so related to feeling like I would always say like alcohol is my queen and I was her servant and chasing her. And that was what it was all about. And, in my story for alcohol is like little things to having children and not going to the place they wanted to go to eat because they don't serve alcohol there. And I can't ever do that. I have to go where there's going to be alcohol and the freedom that comes with now having a choice. But I want to talk to you a little bit about, obviously that high school boyfriend and that town and kind of that whole mentality and the rut that you were there. I know that, long since you've grown, you've changed, but how did you get out of that relationship? And was part of like the beginning of getting help related to ending that relationship? Kind of walk the listener through that part of your journey.
Yeah. So with him, it was funny because it was a different type of love. I feel like he would have done anything from him. It just so happened to be, we were both addicts. You know what I mean? So leaving him was definitely very hard, but I remember he started getting into a little bit harder drugs, which scared me. And I remember sitting down saying like, hey, we need help. Like I ended up going to rehab and he didn't. And I begged him to go and he just, he was battling his own demons. He wouldn't. So I think what happened actually was I had a friend out here. So she's like, just come stay with me for a little bit and get away. Like you're freshly sober, like just get out of that environment. Cause I'm a true believer. Like I'm not going to recover in a place that I got sick at. So it was really hard leaving him, but I kind of knew I had to kind of flee in the night. We lived together and I knew he wasn't going to take it well. So I packed my suitcase and left everything with him and came out here. But really it was a friend that gave me strength to kind of move on and do that, and my family, of course. And I was out here for a year. He had a really hard time. But looking back, I would call him and try to like ease him into it and say, well, I'm coming back. I'm just out here getting sober. But in my heart, I knew like he's too far gone right now that I can't, it would never work for me. But then it I felt like I was doing okay out here. So my stupidity led me awry because I thought, oh, well, I can go back home. I miss my family. I miss my friends, and I can go and be normal and go back there. But that wasn't the case because then I ended up using and getting into even more of an abusive relationship with some other guy. That was not good at all. So,
and I want to know about that. So, like, walk us through that, because what I want to catch right here in this moment is, let's say we have a listener, and let's say it's a listener, contemplating like either leaving their environment or revisiting their environment.
Yeah.
Do I have the strength? Can I go home? So, when you got home, and we won't spend too much time on it, but when you got home, can you identify some of the mistakes? Like, should you have stayed at your parents' house? Did you go to a party? Who did you hang out with? Like, how did you, and what would you recommend to someone making all those choices right now so that they can maybe go down a different path?
I think when I went home, I was naive to think, I'm from such a small town that I would walk down the street and you would see Bobby, who is your drug dealer, and you're like, oh my God, Bobby, I can take one more pill. Let me just have one more pill. I won't. I was naive to think like I'm not going to go back down that path. Like one is not going to affect me, but that was not the case either. But I would say, now going back, I'm a little bit stronger and I know my triggers and how to handle it. But I was hanging out with the same people. I did a lot of self-sabotage then. Like I think I was self-sabotaging purposely. My father had passed away. So I didn't know how to handle those emotions. So that wasn't a good environment for me to be in when something that traumatic or serious had happened, because it was too easy to take a pill and forget about it and not have to deal with like that. But yeah, I shouldn't have been hanging around the people I was hanging out with.
I can tell you a story. I don't think I told you this story, but so how I relapsed the first time. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I knew like quite often in my life that I had an alcohol problem, right?
Right.
I knew it, and I fucked shit up, and I got in trouble, and I partied, and I even experimented with drugs, but I wasn't to this like hardcore alcoholism that developed later.
Right.
But the first stint that I went into rehab and I caught 6 months sober. I still know everything that happened, but basically I had started to fantasize about the idea that I could use ecstasy on occasion.
Oh yeah.
Because
totally.
what it was is part of me was still hunting and missing that party life. And, you know, I still had some of those people in my life, kind of, I had put them at arm's length, but I was starting to invite them back in, one of those being my ex-husband. And he and his friends like to party a little bit. There was Taste of Scottsdale, which is a big event.
Yeah,
you know,
there.
and then everyone was going to go. And I was like, I'm going to go and not drink, you know, 6 months sober. And so I go, and I remember just being so full of tension and hating everyone there and just feeling jealous and like I'm not like everyone else. And, you know, at a certain point in night, it's not about tasting the food. It's about alcohol for many people there. And I hung in throughout this series of the night. And then they started to exchange pills. And I found out it was ecstasy. I took half a pill. And the next day, I didn't even drink that night. But the next day, I wasn't feeling amazing. And I was on my way to the grocery store. And I pulled into a sports bar. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to have a glass of Chardonnay to take the edge off this ecstasy hangover. And from there, you know, I went back into it. And I've talked about that story before. But I relate so much to you going back to that environment. And then, so my question from there is, you did that once. Have you not been able to go home since then? Like, how do you live your life differently? And you talked about getting help, relapsing, getting help. Was all of those since rehab was the final? Like, what did you do to kind of stay away from pills now, like where you're at?
So I would think alcohol and pills are kind of different because alcohol is easily accessible. That would be hard for me. I don't know where I would be if I could easily access pills.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that has been actually a huge blessing in disguise. And when I moved out here, I didn't know anyone. And I'm not going to go up to some random person on the street and say, hey, you got a pain pill I can have? So, I mean, that helped me in a sense too. Now going back home, it's great to see because my hometown kind of addressed the issue.
Sure.
And a lot of my friends and people that I've grown up with are now sober.
Oh, awesome.
So now I'm getting sold. I'm like, who are the drug dealers around here? Like, I don't even know. So when I go back, it's not as bad. And I surround myself with my friends that weren't involved in that. And they were very supportive with me through my process, and they've always got my back. They know, like, okay, like maybe we don't go to the bar down the street because that's going to trigger Jenny and maybe she might use. They've been very supportive in that sense. So having like a buddy system has been really good for me too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you talked a little bit about your lowest point, but tell the listener just what it felt like in the lowest point and maybe how you climbed out of that lowest point.
Of course. So my lowest point, like I said, I was freshly out of rehab. My father had passed away. I think our family was at an all-time low at that point. Obviously, the head of household has died. My father, who I've loved, and first real death that I had to deal with. Ever. So, I mean, I couldn't handle that emotion and I would have done anything. I would have literally cut off my arm to just stop the pain and that grief. We were struggling financially because, you know, he had some bad business dealings. And I remember stealing my mom's credit card and ATM and just stealing. I mean, it was a lot of money, you know, to feed my habit. when she was already like struggling. Yeah, you know, she just needed my love. She needed me to be strong. And and here comes the tears. And that's like, when I look at it, I'm like, okay, this addiction is not hurting just me. It's hurting someone that I love the most, my mom, you know? And so I still like carry guilt for that. So, you know, she was struggling so much too. And, you know, we're all trying to get over my dad's death, and she had to deal with my wild ass going out, you know, getting all fucked up all the time. And, you know, that was hard on her. And I had plenty of rock bottoms, but I knew right then and there, I was like, okay, well, this is affecting other people now. This isn't just about me. Yeah. So that was definitely my rock bottom. She ended up calling the cops on me. And I'm pretty sure I went back to rehab. I can't remember. It's been so the time frame
is a whirlwind.
It was a whirlwind. Yeah.
People I don't think understand. You're in this downward spiral, and I don't know. I felt like I was just spinning and there was no way out. And I hurt people too, you know? And for me, it was predominantly my children. And it's a lot to deal with. I have to constantly, now I want to get emotional, but I have to constantly repeat to myself, like, I can't go back. I'm not that person I used to be. I am this person. Yeah. And all we can do is make a living amends to those that we've hurt or impacted. So would you say that was your final turning point or specific turning point? Or like, would you say it was sometime when you were in Arizona? Like, how did that mental mindset shift happen?
That wasn't even my turning point. Yeah. That was just my lowest point. I think my turning point, because I still continued to use. You know, you make excuses. So I still continue to use, but then
real quick, but also the shame, because at some point then you're medicating for the shame of what you just did. Yeah. And it's like, what the fuck is going on?
It's one big
because
circle.
I can't even live through this, but go on.
Yeah.
So what was the turning point?
So, oh God, I'm trying to think. So the turning point was, what happened? Oh, I got into a pretty abusive relationship with someone else at this point. Looking back on it, I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? And then started to reuse again. And at that time, my mom had remarried. And my stepdad was going through my car, and he found a tutor and a plate. And I carried a tutor and plate like it was my fucking ID and cell phone. Like, I had it everywhere I went, just in case I needed to use. So he ended up telling my mom, and she found out I was using again. And that was when she was just like, enough's enough. She called my best friend. I went missing. I vaguely remember this, but I feel like I went missing at one point, and they were trying to find me, locate me. And that day, my mom's like, I'm done enabling you. You're kicked out. You're no longer in this household. I won't be giving you money. My best friend said the same thing. I love you, but I'm done with you. Like, you're putting so much on your mom and me. Like, I can't do it anymore. So that night I went to my sister's house and kind of told her, and I'll never forget this. This is one moment in my sobriety where I will not forget. I went up into my sister's room and turned on the TV. And at this point, it was like midnight. And Joyce Myers randomly came on, and she was talking about her recovery. Yeah. And I remember thinking, the universe is telling me, get your shit together. Like, this is time. And I just remember getting on my knees and just begging God to help me. Like, that was when I was like, I've hit my rock bottom. I've surrendered. Like, help me. And then the next day we made a plan, and I was back out in Arizona again. Yeah. So
I'm sure glad you're in Arizona.
Yeah. And I think too, like, when I got out here, I was so pissed off that I had to quit. And I was so pissed off that I had to live a sober lifestyle, because, you know, everyone's dream is to be a functioning addict, you know? And I was mad at my mom, and I was mad at my friend for sending me out here, and I was mad at my family. And anger actually fueled me. I was like, I'll fucking show them.
I love it.
But it worked.
Yeah.
So I'm here and doing fine now. So.
I had all those same prayers and thoughts and, just trying to hang in there to get clean. I mean, it was such a battle for me. Did you feel like once you were here in Arizona, like it was just, like, I don't want to say easy, but like a switch had flipped? Or was it like something you had to really talk yourself through every day? Like, what did you do to kind of get through that initial hump?
Oh my God, I still to this day am talking myself through things.
Yeah.
No, it still wasn't easy. It was just easy because I couldn't get it.
Yeah.
And I think actually this year is finally like a turning point of my recovery where I was like, oh,
yeah,
like I actually feel the weight of it. And that is what? It's been like 6-7 years.
Yeah.
And finally I'm feeling a little less like, uneasy about my addiction. But no, it definitely was not hard. Or definitely was not easy. It was definitely hard. But again, I had, it was fun and it was new and I was meeting new people. So it was easy to keep my mind off of things. And I was also in counseling too. So that really helped.
Yeah. For sure. And, I'm a big advocate of therapy. I'm in therapy. I do it every other week. It's been a saving grace for me. And I think it's something we can all use to find different tools to cope with a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, what would you say to a listener that's trapped in shame right now? And remember, we have listeners from all different walks. They might have gone through trauma, abuse, maybe it's addiction. So if you have a listener, they're in shame, what would you tell them right now? Because when I met you for the first time, you certainly didn't exude shame. You exuded confidence and just bubbliness and happiness. And, I know that was a transformation for you. So how did you kind of do that?
Oh, gosh. Shame was actually the hardest thing. The easiest thing was getting clean. It's dealing with the aftermath and the shame after you get clean.
Yeah.
That is very hard. What I've come to learn is, especially in our industry, you hear so many stories. I work with so many varieties of people when it comes to like doctors, nurses, athletes, all kinds of people. Everyone has shame and everyone feels guilt or remorse for something that they have done. It's a part of your story. It's what makes your story unique. And it's what builds your character. Hopefully you come out of the other side and have a little bit of empathy and compassion for others, because we all are going through something. I had a counselor that said, I was telling her, hey, I'm feeling really guilty and shameful for the things that I've done. Because there was a point that I was just calling my mom every day, apologizing. And I'm like, I have to get over this. And she told me, look at it as it's like you're going through college. You've learned your lessons from that shame, from that guilt, and you paid your dues. Move on. So if anyone that is stuck in that, you've learned a lesson from it. Move on.
And I feel like you have to forgive yourself and know that whatever you went through, there was a purpose for it.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to think that way all the time because of that shame. What I like to do, and I share this with the listeners, is walk myself, feel what happened, feel what I did, and then allow myself the forgiveness, because I will go out and help other people that are enduring the same things. And like I said, I think we have listeners that tune in just for the inspiration to kind of make it another day. And that's why hearing a story like yours is so important.
Yeah.
But what I'd really like to know is, like you said, we're in this industry. It's about looking good. There's so much going on. What would you say are some stigmas either you personally have faced, or like, have you felt like you've had to hide some parts of your life? Like, what do you do to kind of to keep up with everything and work around those and face them?
Oh, gosh. Well, first, I want to address the stigma behind addicts. I think a lot of people think addicts are selfish, weak, immoral. I think you need to start looking at those as symptoms of a disease. I didn't wake up and want to be an addict. I didn't wake up and want to be, stealing or hurting my loved ones. It's just something in my brain that when I took that pill triggered me to want more. But with that being said, you can't excuse the actions of the addict. You know, you do make choices when you're an addict, but that part of your brain, we have to start kind of turning the script, and society needs to start addressing it as a public health issue and realize that we're working with a disease. We're not working with people that are choosing to be like this. So I think if we start kind of having that mindset towards things, it would help. You can't shame an addict to getting help.
No, and I think you really hit the nail on the head. I mean, I look back at just in our interview talking about the environment you were exposed to and that surroundings. And there was this one time not that long ago, maybe a year ago, I was driving through a rougher part of Phoenix, and you know, I saw this family, and it was basically a family of drug addicts. And, you know, I'm in my car, and it's, I want to say from as young as 14. It was a 14-year-old boy, and then like 2 middle-aged type parents and like a grandma or something. And they were literally all visibly like it had to be meth or something. And I'm looking at this boy, and I'm like, I could die 1,000 deaths right now, because it's like, it's not like he had a choice, you know, it's not. And that's what he grew up around. And so, and in saying that, you know, I don't make excuses. You know, my problem was with alcohol, and it wasn't necessarily because I was just in some cesspool of alcohol. I will say, you know, alcohol is widely used. There's plenty of problem drinkers in the U.S. It's just a part of our culture. But I think you hit the nail on the head saying you didn't grow up and want to be that. I didn't grow up as a little girl with the dreams that I had, playing Barbies and My Little Ponies, thinking someday I'm going to have to drink in the morning so that I don't shake out, you know? I didn't think that. And I think you hit it perfectly with symptoms. And earlier on a previous episode, we had actually a scientist on who's in recovery.
Oh, nice.
And she was talking to us a little bit about just the chemistry and how for certain people, how it affects us differently. And so I appreciate you sharing that. And I think in us both talking about that, listeners can have it resonate that there's not something wrong with you, and that if you want to get better, you can. And there's help out there. And for each of us, it's different. You know, for me, I used AA. Some people don't need to use AA. I personally recommend trying everything until you can figure out what you like, don't like, and then try it some more. Because too, for me in AA, it you know, there's definitely some meetings I didn't like and meetings that I did. So try out different things. Therapy is a great one. But Jen, tell us who you are today. What makes you you? Maybe some daily practices that you use to keep you centered. You're a successful business owner. Tell us more about you today.
Oh my God, who am I? I'm still trying to figure that out. Jeez. You know, honestly, I am happy. I'm in such a good space. I'm loved. You know, you still struggle. Like, I don't want to sit here on the other side and say, like, look, it's all freaking roses, because that's not the case. No, you're going to suffer a little bit. You're going to have your days. But no, I feel in a much better place today than I was back then. But 3 practices that has helped me. Let's see. Exercise, obviously. I feel like that's everyone's kind of like go-to thing, but it does. It produces dopamine and serotonin and all the good stuff. So it makes me feel high without taking something. Give me that. And the worst outcome is I have a hot body. So,
worst side effects.
I'm not going to steal anything. Second thing, I became a list addict. I'm addicted to lists. I love writing lists down and then accomplishing it and then checking. It's a high in itself. Try list writing. I'm telling you.
I'm going to do it.
It's a high in itself. It makes me feel accomplished, and I kind of keep on track.
Sure.
And a third thing, I think, you know, with my battle, I think a lot of it stems from anxiety. So what I have learned is our brain plays tricks on us, and we kind of build up scenarios way bigger than what they actually are. So I've learned to write down every time I'm feeling anxious, what it's about, how I was feeling, and then look back like a month later or a week later and it's actually laughable. You're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I was worried because I said a weird word to the guy at the coffee store.
Yeah.
Like, stupid. Like, you'll laugh about it. Or even if it was a serious, like, matter, you realize, oh my God, I've overcome that. That is nothing to be worried about. So writing, like, journaling and writing all that down and keeping track of it, and then going back and looking and saying, like, I'm still alive. I'm still making it. I'm still okay. Like, what you worry about in the past, you laugh in the future. So that's really helped me.
That's so true. I think about a lot of the things I've gone through or had me really worked up, and then, you know, you come out on the other side.
Totally.
Much like we have so far with addiction. And, you know, addiction at the end of the day is a day-by-day battle. And I like that you touched on that. And whether you have 6 years or someone like me that has almost 3, you know, you have your strong points and you have your low points, but it's taking it one day at a time. And I want to thank you for being my first video guest with the podcast season 4. You know I love you, so it's been so exciting to have you on.
Thank you.
Sharing your story. I know it's going to inspire listeners.
Yeah.
And for all the listeners, thank you guys for tuning in again. If you want to catch up from the beginning, you can catch us at April_the_hills or abuserecoverysuccess.com. Hear more from many, many amazing guests, or just rewatch this one since Jen was so fantastic. Thank you guys.
Thanks.
There's no mountain too high for us now. There's no reason to hide. Just like the stars we shine bright. There's no game that's too